Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RCD ShareNet. I'm Dave Thompson, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator here at RCD. And I have Eileen Davidson, who is a arthritis research and patient advocate. And we're doing all month about invisible illness and disability awareness. And this is part 2 of our interview. And today we're going to talk a little bit, I've called it the flip side. And I kind of surprised my boss because she never knew this, but I'm aging myself. But when I was a kid, I got all these 45 records from my brothers and sisters, and the ones that had to put that little thing in the middle. And the term that I learned from my dad was that usually one side had the really good song, the one that you heard on the radio. The other side had another song that wasn't as popular. So that's where the term flip side would say, oh, it's the flip side of this, because if you like the song on the other side, then that's a bonus, right? and if you liked it more than that one, that was even better, right? So that's where the term comes, and it's just what are the things that you found that really have affected you positively now through your journey? So again, you do advocacy work for the Arthritis Society, and you do all kinds of writing and other informational sort of ideas. But what have been the positive effects that you have had on some of the things in your life? Like I had written down here things like confidence, emotional, mental health, your physical health.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's definitely been quite a few flip sides since my diagnosis, and I guess a lot of that it took me to create those flip sides. And so I think my diagnosis just really it made me re-examine my life and actually start striving to do things that I wanted to do or to better myself. So one was, getting into that gym and becoming more physically active. I lost a bunch of weight, but then I put a little bit back on because of COVID. Thanks, COVID. But just now I know how to exercise. I know how to eat healthier. It taught me a lot about the self-care that I really, really needed to do. And then it gave me confidence after that, because exercise really is medicine. It does help with depression, anxiety, and my arthritis and everything else I have going on. It helped me be a better mom even. I guess another major flip side is my disability, and having a disability has made my son more compassionate towards others, really helpful. He's so smart for his age. He's very independent too. Sometimes I feel bad that he's so independent, but it's good for him,
Yeah, because I felt that my son missed out on some stuff, the normal dad things. I never could throw him in the air, and I could never do things like that. But I was home a lot with him when he was young. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have like a definite connection. He comes to my doctors. He knows my doctors by name. He's not scared when he goes to the dentist or doctor. He has to get a needle because he knows that they're good for us and they can help us. He's become friends with the kids who get bullied at school because they're different or they have a disability or something like that. And he sticks up for them. So there's the flip side of that. And then, of course, everything I've been able to do as an advocate, participating in research and getting to travel with that, or having, people from all over the world read my blog, write for the #1 health publication like Healthline, or be in major news networks like CNN or BBC and things like that. That's all been really exciting. That probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't have arthritis. I guess the one thing that always kind of keeps me going as an advocate was when I was first diagnosed, I felt so alone because I felt like I was, what's going on with me? Like, I'm so weird compared to all these other people. Why do I feel like I do? So I guess it's been really important to me that my work has made others not feel alone. And it's educated people living with the condition, but also researchers and people who live with the condition, the people closest to them.
Yeah, and because that I've always said that I can handle the pain now, That's not a big deal. It was the collateral damage it's done to my family, the choices we had to make for having more children or ever having any children, all those sort of things. That's the stuff that sort of keeps me awake at night sometimes and whatnot else. But that's, give me more pain. I know how to deal with now. But the fact that I couldn't do certain things with my son, or I missed out on this or that, the other thing, those are the things that kind of are more difficult to handle. But there was also some positives as well, right? I always say the one big thing that I learned was empathy, which I don't know where I was on the empathy scale before, but I could pick. I freaked out a waitress in Hawaii. We were there a couple years ago, and I saw her walk, a couple steps from the bar, and I said, "You've hurt your back." And she's like, "Pardon? Do we know each other?" And I could just tell, like, it's just, you get this sixth sense, and you can see, because you've seen that in yourself. You've seen yourself in the mirror. You walk that way. You can see it, right? And I was already a people watcher from being a bouncer and a prison guard. I'm watching people all the time, right? I don't trust anybody. But now with this, with that sort of extra, I'm like a human lie detector. I'll pick it off, right? Because you've got that in your, and you can see when someone's going through something. You're standing in the grocery line or something like that, right? And I think that was one thing that I really have to say as a flip side for me is being able to see that, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's taught me to be a lot more compassionate, not just with others, but also myself.
And it was challenging for me because I have a rare condition, but I always say fibromyalgia because it's easier for people to understand. But it's 90% women as well. Yep. So there's a whole other challenge, right? It's like most of the research is all sort of skewed for the female body and whatnot else. So there's not a lot of stuff for the guys, right?
Well, another thing too is not a lot of men actually participate in research, or they're not as interested in speaking about their pain or sharing their stories. And yes, arthritis does affect more women overall, but even lupus affects men. But I've been at a couple of research conferences, and I've looked and seen, 92% female participant and maybe 2 men participated. And it's not just the fact that more arthritis affects women. There are forms of arthritis like ankylosing spondylitis that affects more men, but it's also that more men do not participate. They're not interested in talking about their pain. They hide it. They also don't know where to find these resources.
All those stereotypes that we've lived with.
There's that stigma. If you were a man and you talk about your pain, you're, a wussy.
Yeah,
but
suck it up. Suck it up, princess. Right? Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I used to tell people, like, they would say, "Oh, it's the old football injury. It's this, that, the other thing," and like when I went through sort of mapping where my illness was, and I'm like, if your son came home at 15 and said, "My back hurts," well, did you get hit? Did you have an accident? Back then it was, "Oh, you got a Thompson back." Well, we probably all had some illness, but we didn't check it out. And that's the thing. They don't want to speak about it. I've had several women come into the center before, and they're like, I can't get my husband to come with me here. And I said, well, there's stages, right? I always call it, there's the but stage is where he's probably at. And that's when you can give them all kinds of things to try, but the first words out of their mouth are, but there's this, right? And that's fine. That's not bad. It's just, you've got to get past that stage, right? Yeah. Those are the stages. Just like you mentioned before, there's the sort of mourning your old life and whatnot else, and finding those things. They're all stages that you have to go on. And you can run into people when you're at different stages and they don't click, and then you see them again and now it clicks, right? Because you're at that right spot. So I usually say, hey, when he starts stops the buts, have him call me, and then I got stuff I can help him out with. But he's got to get through that himself. And that the stereotypes was tough, and I felt it as well. With me, there was a lot of switched gender roles as well. I couldn't drive because I would fall asleep, and I would watch the cashiers at the when my wife would load all the groceries and look at me like, what's this lazy bugger doing? Lift something, buddy. And it was tough, having to ask for a seat on the bus or something like that. And especially my size, right? I've been as big as 260, and I don't really look like I sort of needed that, right? And so that,
Did you
that
ever
was
carry mobility aids with you, or put on a splint or something just to?
Well, that's the thing. I started carrying a cane when I was doing radio for Soapbox Radio, and I had to take the bus and the SkyTrain. I found it just easier to take a cane because I couldn't stand for too long. And if the bus moved around, I could lose my balance, and you don't want the 260-pound man in your lap. I almost fell in a little lady's lap once. So I would just carry the cane. It just made it easier because they see it, and it's like, okay, I don't have to do a big spiel, and they don't have to roll their eyes or go, yeah, whatever, buddy. And it just made it easier.
I remember doing that too. Yeah.
And you just didn't want to have to go through the whole thing.
Especially when I was 29, 30 when I tried that out, and I didn't look ill.
Yeah, and I say that to people too, because some people, again, they'll be given that aid, or they'll be suggested it, and they'll go, I'm too young to be carrying a cane. It's like, look, if the cane helps you, use the damn cane, right? Mm-hmm. It's that whole embarrassment. I coined a term for one of my workshops called your embarrassment factor. When you walk down the street and you catch your foot on a raised piece of concrete or something and you trip, usually the first thing you do is what? Right? But you look around and see if anyone saw how stupid you looked, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the first thing you do. Sometimes you even hurt yourself doing it because you're whipping your head around, and you're like, because we're worried about that subconsciously, that did we look silly? But once you get past that, you can try anything. You can try, I had to pull my son along. I would tuck a blanket in my pants and I would pull him along the floor because I couldn't lift him. And stuff like that. But there was a stage where it bothered me, but then it was like, look, if this is going to help me and this is going to give me more precious time with him later when I'm not wasted, I'm using it. And I'm getting the damn cane, and I'm sitting in I used to drive that grocery cart, the motorized one that they would have. And I'm using it because it's gonna make the time that I have with him later on, and I'm not like a zombie just because I was worried about what strangers thought about me in the grocery store.
Yep.
Right? And I couldn't waste that energy on that because I had such little. Right. So that's another big thing I think that people have to sort of get past in their sort of travel, is that emotional is, I'm going to do this for me. And it happens with doctors too, because you'll try doctors, and some doctors will have egos, and they'll say things like, well, if you're trying this thing, I'm not going to do this. Like, look, I'm really not worried about your feelings here. I'm just trying to get better.
Yeah.
I know there's the flavor of the month and you want to do it, but and so there's a lot of stuff to juggle that people don't sort of understand that way, I think.
There definitely is.
And I had some challenges with doctors, and just your thought process of advocating for yourself is another thing, because a lot of times I grew up with, you go to the doctor, whatever the doctor tells you, you do it. That's it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then when I married into a family that had doctors, I saw that they were normal human beings. They did stupid things. They did, right? And it was like, you should see my brother. Like, he runs a hospital, and he's just nuts. He's a hilarious guy.
They
but
are just they're
just normal like everybody else, right? But I never was exposed to that when I was growing up, and so then I had to say, hey, no, I've got to be my own doctor in a sense, and that also takes that, you got to get that confidence behind you and that mental strength and whatnot. And again,
well, it takes a long time to become a doctor, and it takes a long time to become your own doctor, to know what your body actually needs and how to take care of it as well.
Yes, for sure.
We're in medical school.
Yeah. Well, that's what I used to tell people at parties when they found out, and they said, so what are you doing now? So I'm in medical research. And if they asked more, they said, oh, what kind? I said, for me. Because I was so sick and tired of going, hey, I don't know, let's go and pull your career out from underneath you tomorrow, and I'll come over in a couple of weeks and ask you what you're doing.
I just tell people I'm a writer. It's easy.
Yeah.
Find out arthritis. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was definitely. But can you pinpoint a skill or an insight that you think that solely was attributed to sort of your, other than like we talked about, definitely empathy would be one there. Um, can is there anything that sort of comes to mind?
Well, I never did public speaking before arthritis. I
Right.
never I never did. Well, I did writing, but I wrote about like heavy metal albums or how good a concert was. I never really wrote about myself, really expressed myself. So now I've had researchers reach out to me and say, hey, can you help me with a grant proposal? You're a really talented writer. What kind of training do you have? I just writing 12 in high school. That's it. So, I get a lot of people reading my writing and impressed with it. So that's been a skill that I guess I had, but I just didn't have something to really passionately write about.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember always when people would ask you, like, oh, have you ever been a salesman or something like that? I said, I have a brother who could sell ice cubes to Eskimos, as we used to say, right? And but I said I can only sell something that I either made or that I really feel strong about.
Yeah.
I can't even barter in Mexico. Like it just freaks me out, right? I can't do it. Like if someone says it's this much price and I think that's all right, that's what I'm paying. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't like these barter stuff. I couldn't handle it. My wife's like, "No, you're supposed to." No.
No.
We'll just
I
fight
don't want
then.
it. I have no interest. Too much energy.
Yeah. He said it's $6. $6 seems all right. I'm all right with that.
They gotta eat too.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely you do have gained some things from I think for sure the public speaking has helped me. I've always been a bit of a chatter, but I never had again I had to sort of get that that thing behind me, right? And why I was doing it. And I just felt that again I can't keep there's so little people sort of exploring some of these things, and it's sad. Like I remember getting excited when we heard about Lady Gaga having fibromyalgia, right? It's like, thank God, finally. And it seems awful, but it's like you need people that other people see, right? Because no one else knows about it, and it's sad. It's just the way the world works. There's so many other people that have these stories, but now Lady Gaga has it. Now everyone's going to talk about it, right? And I guess it's kind of what they said, the means to the end kind of idea is it's like, as long as you get to the good place at the end, whatever you had to go through. That was, like I said before in the last interview, it was very tough for me just to get through that guilt sort of thing and my image and the way I looked, and people would go, well, you don't look sick, and just that whole sort of thing, and walking with the cane, and that was tough. But definitely I have no embarrassment factor now. If someone asks me to talk or whatever, I forget we just said goodbye to one of our co-op students, and sometimes I forget that other people are scared to death of talking in public. It's like up there is one of the highest things, and to me it's like me and seasickness. I was in the Navy, so it doesn't bother me, and I never think of it, right? And every time if we were going to say, let's go on a cruise, my wife's like, at what time of year? No way, right? And I don't even think about it. So and that's other than going to the dentist, that's like one of the top 5 things that people are afraid of.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think needles too.
Yeah, yes, and needles, which is a big thing. So one question that I kind of forgot in the last interview is, what exactly does a patient advocate do? Is there a set job that you do?
No. There's many things and many different kinds of patient advocates. It's finding what kind of advocacy you like doing, what you're comfortable doing, and also what opportunities are available. So as a patient advocate, I do a whole lot of things. So when the Arthritis Society does their fundraising, I participate in that. When it comes to contacting different politicians about joint replacement surgery time waits or fair pharmacare costs and all those sorts of things, patient advocates can get involved in that. There's always research opportunities for patients to involve themselves in. That's a form of advocacy, participating in research. And then advocacy, speaking to pharmaceutical companies or healthcare companies, or creating awareness, involving in campaigns. So it's really depending on what you're comfortable doing and what's available.
I've had a chance to work with students a lot, nursing students, doctors,
Yeah.
all those sort of things. They would have a certain section in their training where they had a paper to write and they would interview you. So I always enjoyed that. I did get involved in the new group. Well, it's kind of new out at UBC, where they've been able to mix all the different disciplines together, which doesn't happen
the mentorship
very often.
program?
Yeah, and I did that one year, and I had like a what's it called? A genetic counselor, which I never even knew existed. I didn't even know what that was. But my niece actually has a very good friend who is one. I had a genetic counselor, an OT, a nursing student, and a med student. And it was just neat to watch them the first couple of times because they never mixed, and they all got credit for what they did in their different faculties. And they had to journal and stuff like that. And they would just come and pick my brain, and I think the biggest thing that they just couldn't imagine it. It's like no one has a playbook for this stuff, and you've got to figure it out. And it was so hard for them to say, well, when you're going to the doctor and you're like, well, I don't know how to do this. And a lot of times you're advocating for yourself. There's not a playbook. And when I told them about a time where I took a medication and I got stuck in the hospital because they thought I was on some sort of drug and I wasn't telling my wife about it. And so they waited and they left me in there for 6 hours. Right. And it's just, it's sad, but these things have to happen for there to be change. And I remember being very scared. I don't know about you, but I was on the fentanyl patch for years, the morphine patch. And then when it started becoming, everyone was using it, and I was really worried about that because I got it, the legal way and everything like that. But now it was like, and now all the doctors were cutting it off because they were worried about their medical practices. And people would have to go out and buy it from not so legal means just to stay on that way, even though the doctor was the one that told you to go on it in the first place. So that was a big challenge. And we've talked off camera before about the difference with alternative medicines and just all the stuff that you can try. And I said to people, it's great, but it's just not like going to the pharmacy and buying it and then putting it out to take it whenever it tells it to take it. Whenever you start something new, there's all kinds of different factors. There's an emotional factor. There's the fact that all your friends know that you're taking it. So now they're going to ask you questions every time they see it. How's it going? How's this going? And if you say, I don't feel anything, you're going to see the eyes roll like they have 6 or 7 times before. And so it's not just like taking a pill and buying the pill. There's a lot that goes into it. Does it fit into your lifestyle? Is it realistic to take this or whatever it is, right? If I tried a thing from Finland where they ask you to put this little tiny tincture of oil, and they said, mix it with olive oil and rub it all over yourself. I'm like, I'm going to go to work like that? Like, it doesn't make sense.
No. No, I think it can be really confusing to try and find what works for us. And there's many great marketing schemes out there that say, we'll reduce your pain, we'll give you energy, lowers inflammation, boosts your immune system, blah, blah, blah. But what works for one may not work for another. And also people are going to be marketing things so they get money out of you.
Yeah.
So,
and I've talked to a lot of people, the same with trying to work from home schemes and things like that. Some of them already felt like they've been burned once with the illness and how they're dealing with it emotionally. And then to go and, like I have a friend who, $5,000 chelation therapy to basically oil change her blood. Nothing changed. $10,000 to take all the iron or whatever out of the teeth, mercury out of the teeth. Nothing changed. Right. And there's no guarantee for this stuff. The people that are doing it can always just say, well, it's worked for this many people, I guess it just doesn't. And that's the caveat they have to fall back on. And that's not easy to do. You're on a limited income. There's only so many times you can take that leap. And emotionally that really kicks you down. And then, I've had people that have, tried I can still work, but it has to be from home. And then they bought like 400 boxes of Avon that they can't sell or whatever. Right. And then again, they feel like they've been kicked again. Right. And that's tough. Right. And so a lot of times.
living with chronic illness is very expensive. I don't think people really realize just how much we have to pay out of our pocket to find relief, and it's never relief that lasts forever. It's only temporary.
Yeah, and you don't know if you're getting it, or if it's, and like I've said before, if I had someone saying one time, if I was you, I'd be trying everything. If you try everything and to start feeling better, which one's working? 6 could be doing nothing. 6 could be doing harm to you and you have no idea. But now you have to keep them going because you have to keep this balance. You don't know which one it was. Yep. It's like a superstitious hockey player has to keep those dirty socks on every day, right? Because they haven't scored a goal on them since then, right? And that's the other thing too, is you end up to be a bit of a gambler, because I remember waking up, I got to a point where there was that point where I said, okay, it's not about I'm finding a cure every day, because that will also play with you when people mention other, remedies and things like that, because you're like, oh, I shouldn't say no. Maybe this was the one and I let it go by, right? And I let it pass me by, right? And then that eats at you as well, right?
Yeah.
Could have missed it, right?
Well, that's why you have to make sure you're going to reputable resources.
Yeah.
Where you get your information from.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard all sorts of things. I remember being stuck beside a lady on a plane, and we got in an argument before the flight even took off, because she was telling me I should go to the Czech Republic and sit in these radium caves regulated by the German government, and it will get rid of my rheumatoid arthritis. It helped her osteoarthritis.
Yeah.
And
and most people, they do mean well, right? They do mean well, but they don't quite understand the buy-in that it takes for every single one of those, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. You can't be chasing 20 cures around town. Your wallet will be empty for your life. And it's not realistic. You try one thing. I learned from experience. I would tell people, they would give, cut out articles, or they give me this and that. And I'd say, this is what I've learned. I will put this in my folder. I check this folder every 3 months. If I've heard about it before that, I'll pull it out. But after a while, then I throw it away, because I can't be chasing every single thing down. If I hear about it through my other connections and whatnot, hey, have you heard about this? Oh, I think I have an article on that. I'm going to pull that out and make a check, right?
Well, now there's so many different groups on either like Instagram or Facebook you can join that have people living with your condition that are asking questions like, does turmeric really lower inflammation? What vitamins do people need? And you can hear from people with the actual condition and what works for them.
I used to, because other people used to say, have you tried a support group? And I did go to a couple. I found it difficult, again, like I mentioned, with putting a bunch of people together that are different stages of their illness. The people that are really pissed off are usually the ones that take over the support group. And the other ones that are really new and quiet and don't know, they don't get anything out of it. But with doing it online, you're much easier, because you could just, I'm ignoring this, right? You can just pick and grab the stuff that you need, because you could waste your time. If you don't have a really good moderator or someone taking care of the support group, you're going to have somebody who just got their ICBC claim denied or WCB, and they're just going to run the whole meeting, and it's going to be depressing as hell, and you won't get anything from it. I would much rather get a bunch of people together and get something done, like stuff envelopes for a church, or do a food bank run or something like that. At least if you haven't learned about someone during the conversation of working and passing information, then you've done something for someone else, and it's a chance to give back, where you don't have that chance a lot of times. So I think that makes more sense a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, it does.
So I think we're just about out of time. And I want to thank you very much for joining us for these 2 interviews. And we will be working with Eileen with some other stuff. We've chatted about different things, so you may see her face again. And again, check the description for all of the social media contacts. We have one more program coming up in this series on May 26th on adaptive cycling and transportation. That is kind of my baby. And so check it out. If you're thinking of that's a great exercise, because you have a low impact, and with electric now, there you can I call my bike my forever bike, because I'll be riding it as long as I can stay on the seat. I'll be riding it until I die, pretty much. It saves your knees and whatnot else. So and they're coming up with so much stuff. If you just in the last year, some of the things you see people riding out on the street, it's just like, what the heck is that thing, right? Where did that come from, right?
Yep.
I saw the newest thing I saw was called a half bike, and
Oh
it's
yeah, I see those.
and it's like, wow,
Small.
okay, big front wheel, 2 little tiny back wheels, and then just a stand to hold on to in the pedals, and that's it, right? So there's lots of options for those things. So check that out on May 26th. And if you have any suggestions or whatnot else about what we're doing here, please let us know. And again, thanks Eileen for joining us, and
Thank you
we
for
will
having
see you later.
Bye.